At this time of escalation of Middle East tensions, rising bloodshed and world leaders struggling to find a solution, one might ask, how and why did it all go wrong between the Jews and the Arabs? What is the root of the problem and what's the solution? The Jews and the Arabs are actually ancestral half-brothers who could have been friendly allies today. But that hasn't happened. Here's what the Bible reveals. The story begins in Genesis chapter 12, around the year 2000 BC, when God made an everlasting covenant with Abraham. God promised him countless descendants and a land of blessing for them to dwell in. Through this family would eventually come the Saviour of all people, Jesus Christ. Impatient for the birth of a promised son through whom the fulfillment would come, Abraham and his wife Sarah took matters into their own hands by arranging for him to have a child by Sarah's servant, Hagar. That son was called Ishmael. He was not the chosen heir, but God still blessed him and made him the father of many nations. However, God's redemptive plan was destined to be fulfilled through his half-brother Isaac, who was born to Sarah 14 years later. It was here where the division began. There was tension between Sarah and Hagar, resulting in Sarah urging Abraham to send Hagar and Ishmael away. Ishmael became distant from his family and did not participate in the covenant work God was doing through them. He and his descendants were often in conflict with the lineage of Abraham. Two distinct people groups emerged from the two brothers. The Jews descended from Isaac, and the Arabs descended from Ishmael. During the pre-Christian era, Isaac's descendants, the Jews, although often disobedient, stayed closest to the Abrahamic covenant. They remained within the promised land and sought to obey the laws of Moses. However, Ishmael's descendants settled outside the promised land, mostly in the Arabian Peninsula, with most practicing polytheism. When Jesus arrived, most Jews rejected him, in spite of him being the one to whom the Abrahamic covenant and the laws of Moses pointed to. They clung to the old system of laws, sacrifices, symbolic rituals, and reliance on their ethnic identity. At the same time, Ishmael's descendants remained mostly polytheistic until the arrival of Muhammad in around 600 AD. Muhammad claimed to be the final prophet of God. He called for a rejection of polytheism and a return to the worship of the one true God. He taught reverence for Abraham, Moses, and Jesus, but denied that Jesus was divine or that forgiveness of sins and salvation comes through him. Fast forward to today, around 95% of Arabs remain Muslim, while only about 1/3 of Israeli Jews identify as religious. Yet despite rising secularism in Israel, the mindset shaped by Judaism and its religious heritage still exerts a strong influence on the identity, policies and psyche of the Jewish people and the State of Israel. This remains the root of the division between Jews and Muslim Arabs. Both believe that God appeared to Abraham and made covenant promises to him, but both reject that Jesus is the fulfillment of those promises. The Jews believe that the covenant is fulfilled through their physical descent from Abraham through Isaac, whereas Muhammad taught that the covenant was fulfilled through the line of Ishmael and through the establishment of Islam. The Jews claim that Jerusalem and the surrounding land is their rightful inheritance, while the Muslims claim it is theirs. Both adhere to a performance-based religion. They reject grace and the forgiveness of sins through the sacrifice of Christ, instead relying on their own religious observances and moral conduct to earn favour with God. This can foster a sense of entitlement as being favoured by God. Both Jews and Muslims tend to live by the Mosaic principle of an eye for an eye, rather than Christ's superior command to love our enemies. This leads to honour-based retaliation and vengeance. At the heart of the ongoing conflict is not a geopolitical problem. It's a heart problem, and Christ is the only solution. If both Jews and Muslims would embrace him as the Messiah and the fulfillment of the Abrahamic covenant, if they would live according to his principles of love, forgiveness and humility, then they would find unity and brotherhood and be able to live together without racial and religious hostility.